Are you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon, and you're listening to us on Broadway World or over here on the Broadway Podcast Network, and I'm really excited about our next guest. There's a new play called Last Call that is coming to one of my favorite spaces to see a show in New York City, and our next guest, I don't know if this is all true. I'm going to verify it all, but I think there's like 25 albums, right? I mean, if you're in Europe, if you're in the US, if you're anywhere, if you're in Germany, Austria, she has done every major role on stage, literally. And people, if you know your way around music, Rock and Roll Gypsy was a minute ago. And we are going to talk about the journey, the career to music, to theater, to now Leonard Bernstein in New York City. Helen Schneider is here, and we're so excited to have Helen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, Robert. We call you Robert, right?
You can call
not
me
Bob,
Miss
not
Schneider.
Bobby.
You can call me anything you want. You
can call me anything you want.
You can call me anything that you want. Congratulations on this show and this next chapter in quite an amazing career.
Oh, well, thanks. It's been a wild ride, I have to say, and it's still a wild ride. Makes me happy.
Well, while we're talking about it, I want people to know that two musical legends, one final drink, Last Call, coming to New World Stages, which is one of my favorite places. Opening night is March 16th, and you can get your tickets and check it out. You play Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, can you imagine? I'm going to try. I grew up with Leonard Bernstein. I'm pretty secure that I am substantially older than you, Robert. So when I was a girl, Leonard was part of our lives as a television personality, and was a very important influence for me because I studied piano as a kid. I was raised as a classical pianist. And so for me, Leonard Bernstein was an idol. And he was, for us, I think as Americans, I think I speak for a lot of people. He was the first one that took all the secrecy, the mystery out of classical music and made it accessible for everybody and explained things in this wonderful way that just made it seem like everyday life. And so anyway, it has been an amazing ride. Of course, he became one of the world's greatest composers, conductors. I don't know. Yeah. So to try to climb into his older soul as a person has been really an amazing challenge. I'm still in the middle of it. I like to think that me as Leonard Bernstein and my wonderful co-star Luca Züchner, a German actress, as Herbert von Karajan, have tried our best to create a kind of impression. It's definitely an impressionistic feeling for these people. So I don't know, we'll see.
It's going to be amazing. The idea, I'm sitting here thinking about it and wondering, how did this project come to you? Like, how did it come to you that you would be the person to play the parts, and both of you? And what did you say when you first read this? What was your first reaction?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for how everybody else thought about it. But I have been working with a director here in Germany who I really, really adore for quite a while. His name is Gil Mehmet. And I've done a number of projects with Gil over the years. And among them were characters that were, I don't know how to, so kind of gender fluid. And including, for example, one of the characters was the MC in Cabaret. So Gil cast me, and we created a kind of, I think, a very interesting or gender-free person. And it just was a natural development of things. And there were other roles also along those kind of lines. And I got an email and then a phone call from Gil late in the evening. And he said, I'm sending you a script. Tell me what you think. So I read it. And it's written by a man named Peter Danish, an American who lives in upstate New York. And I was totally thrilled. I called Gil the next day. I said, yeah, okay, I'm in. Why me? And then he explained that their idea was to cast it with women in order to make it more universal. And I have to say,
Ooh.
universal in the sense that the themes that are tackled in this 90-minute ride are really about people. Is really about artists. It's about people. It's about politics, how to handle things as an artist. What does it mean to interpret things? How orthodox do you need to be? How far can you push the envelope, which Leonard, of course, was known for in his interpretive work. And it's full of humor, which is also so wonderful. And the two of them kind of banter. And I think it's pretty clear that they were a combination of enemies, verbal combatants, and friends, colleagues. And I think it's a wonderful piece, and I have enjoyed every minute of working on it. So glad to be bringing it finally on stage.
Yeah, so amazing. And here in New York City, right off Broadway, right in New World Stages, which is really such a beautiful venue and place. There's no
I
bad
don't
seats.
know it. It went, I've been out of New York I came to Europe in 2002, and I moved out of New York in 1989. So New World Stages wasn't there when I left.
Well, you're gonna love. There's 6 stages in there, and they're all in this building, and there's all beautiful spaces, and you're gonna have and you're right in the heart of it all. So you're gonna be living it up right there back in New York City.
Great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Your career is fascinating.
Yeah, well, it's a bit odd, I have to say.
Because you are, when I was reading about you, and I'd seen 25 plus albums and the musical theater out in Europe and around the world that you've gotten to play all the amazing parts that you've been. And when I was reading your biography and about you, I thought you were going to be from Europe, but you are from New York.
Yeah, I'm a 4th generation New Yorker, actually.
So how was it that your career moved into Europe? Like your career in Europe, in Germany and Austria and everywhere in
You
Europe.
want the long answer or the short answer?
I have nowhere to go, Helen. I'm here for you.
Now you look like Leonard. Well, I left home, to say it nicely, when I was 17 years old, to pursue a career on stage in some way. I am a trained pianist, or was. I haven't played in 1,000 years. I discovered that I desperately wanted to push my envelope, and I left with a blues rock band, disappeared into the mountains of Massachusetts, and started my hardworking girl life, and I've been working ever since. So that's the first part. Then when you have spent a few years in the business and you're just struggling, I've always been so proud to say, I never did anything but work on stage. I've never been a waitress. I've never been a saleswoman. I've really just managed somehow to get through life on stage. At some point, you learn to see cracks in doors, because the door just pushes open a little bit. And you think, wow, maybe there's something for me behind that door. And so I learned kind of early to experiment and to realize that maybe there was a chance somewhere for me to learn a little more about myself and learn a little more about the stage, but also to perform, to perform my craft. And Germany was part of that. An invitation came in the late 70s, out of the blue, I had made my first album, and this producer, a television producer from Germany, in the south of Germany, kind of tracked me down like a bloodhound, is the best way I can describe it. And he and he invited me to come and be a guest on a musical show, the kind we used to have in the United States. You know, a collection of artists for an hour or whatever. On this particular show, he had Deodada, for anybody who knows who that is, Jerry Mulligan, a legendary jazz musician, Lou Rawls, and me. Okay, little me. So I went over there, and quite honestly, if the invitation had come from somewhere in Mars, I would have learned Martian and gone to Mars. Because you learn pretty early, you go where you're invited to go, the door cracked open. So I didn't speak German. I didn't know anything about the German culture, only what we know in New York. German culture is kind of a part of New York and Eastern Europe. And I was thrilled to come over here. I'm talking to you now from Hamburg, where I live, and it kind of grew from there. A kind of Johnny Carson personality from there, from Germany, saw this show and was very impressed, apparently. And then he invited me on his show, which was a very big national deal. And the snowball began to roll downhill. And was coming ever since, and finally decided to call it my home.
It's such an amazing story. And when I see the plays you've done and the music you've recorded, I mean, you talk about joining the rock band and going to Massachusetts, the hills of Massachusetts, but you sell yourself very short. You have done Broadway. Eddie and the Cruisers, we grew up on Eddie and the Cruisers in my house. My dad had the CD, that he would play that iconic soundtrack and say, this movie has the best soundtrack of all time. You had quite the career here, and then you went there and made quite the career there. Does it feel like a homecoming, this play? Does it feel like you're back in New York?
That's a very difficult question for me right now, because I have a spectacular connection to Europe now. When I first came over here, I went to France. I moved to the south of France. I left the US for a few reasons. My career had kind of, I had a lot of luck here. If you have a massive hit somewhere, really massive, a lot of doors open, not just a crack, they kind of open. And so my possibilities of working here and the niveau of the people I was able to work with was considerable here. So I'm losing my track, because you asked me a question that has so many different answers.
It's okay.
But to connect to your Eddie and the Cruisers comment is actually because of Eddie and the Cruisers, in which I was cast also kind of out of the blue. Ellen Barkin and Tom Berger and Joe Pantoliano and Michael Prey became very good friends, and Tom and Ellen were instrumental in encouraging me to pursue acting, which I did finally. I took a big pause in my recording career, and I stayed in New York, and I studied with a marvelous teacher under an umbrella of professional classes through HB. So, and kind of reinvented myself. But I had also some problems. I had some very cliche manager artist problems in the United States, and to spare the whole world some kind of sordid, unfortunate, classic details, it was easier for me to work here. And so, like I said, you go where the work is, and you go where the doors open. And eventually I began to learn German. I didn't want to be an ugly American. And the things began to come to me that had also to do with the German language. And musical theater even also was kind of not my original intention. I wanted to keep music and acting separate. I started my acting career in the United States. I was Romanian gypsy for all my children. I never imagined them coming together. And then I had a wonderful agent named Ron Muchnick, who is long gone. And he said to me, "What is wrong with you? You sing. It's an addition to what you do as an actress. You can't ignore it. Put it together." So I started to figure out how to put it together.
And you did, and you've done it. And I mean, like when you look at, and while we're talking, everybody, go to lastcalltheplay.com and get your tickets to see this show when it comes. It's funny you bring up Joe Pamphiliano. I just saw him at New World Stages. He did a show on Rock Island Freed, and he performed at New World. Like, that is the place to go see some of the best off-Broadway work, and the best artistic work seems to be done off-Broadway because it's creative and it's new, and something like this gets the chance to play and get the chance to be seen in an audience that is not Broadway has become so commercialized and so safe. We want to see these exciting ideas and casting and stories to be told. So get your tickets. You learned German, and you must speak German now all the time. You live there.
Well, yeah.
I know.
I mean, the fact is, Germany was an occupied country for a long time, and you know, the United States won the war, thank God, and so the American influence is very, very, very strong here, and English is like a second language. But indeed, I function in German. I also teach in German. I've become a teacher. The last 7 years, I've decided to try to communicate what I know, what I think I know anyway, my truths, and I've enjoyed that immensely. It has also aided my German language work. And one of the most thrilling things for me doing this project is this is the first time in a century that I have been able to work in my home, my mother tongue, which is so thrilling for me. It's just, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm coming home. I'm nervous about what's happening to the United States. I think like everybody. That's kind of odd, I have to say. But New York is an island, always has been. I have never identified myself to anyone as an American. I've always identified myself to everyone as a New Yorker. Like, they're two separate things. Like, Berliners are not Germans, they're Berliners. It's like there are certain cities that just become their own world.
It's funny because I call myself a fake New Yorker because I'm from Fort Lee, New Jersey. So I'm a mile outside, but if I go anywhere, I'm like, oh, I'm from New York. I'm from New York. Where in New York? Okay, you got me. I'm in Fort Lee. I'm across the bridge, but it's close. It's close.
Well, I have a confession to make since you're confessing.
Yes, please.
What's fair is fair. In my grade school years, my father moved a family to Pompton Lakes.
Oh, it's beautiful out there.
Yeah, it is. But my parents remained New Yorkers to the core. We still always came back to New York, and everything was New York. And
and all roads lead to New Jersey, apparently, as well, as you can see in our story. What I was going to say to you, you bring up the United States, which I'm sure your perspective and the world's perspective in Europe is vastly different. We've seemed to sided with some very interesting countries here in the United States as of late, and seem to tilt our head. And politically, we are in weird times, which is why I'm trying to be as nice as I can be about this, Helen. Which means that shows like this, as astutely political or not political, Leonard's life was fascinating. His loves were fascinating. His journey was fascinating. Who he was fascinating. We live in a world where who we are and what we are in the United States is really at risk, and people are fighting to be who they are. So as old as this is, it's, I'm sure, very timely to tell this story.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the I had mentioned, you know, we have these grand arguments, Karajan and Bernstein, and in the political scene, Herbert von Karajan, who was, it's amazing how little the United States really knows of this man. He truly was a genius, and his recordings are amazing, and he had a spectacular hold of technology and how to record music and what was possible. He was one of the first to really climb in there. He was, however, very orthodox in his musical approach. Politically, as a young man, a very handsome man, like Leonard was a handsome young man, Herbert was even handsomer, and he stayed here during the rise of Hitler and became a fair-haired boy, so to speak, so a star for Hitler's regime. And he never was active. He did not aid and abet it, but he was a star in it. And Leonard always faulted him for it. Leonard was also a passionate Zionist in his early years, and struggled also with his sexuality and religion and place, but they have it out with each other. What I think is so beautiful about this piece is that these are two older men, older people. And I know I am certainly not a youngster anymore. I'm 72 years old. And
you look so good. Oh my gosh.
Made my lighting a little. And at some point you come to an understanding that nothing's really black and white. Everything is gray. Actually, I really believed that until very recently, recent developments on your side of the ocean. But essentially, life as a whole is gray. And it's mostly shades of gray. And I think that's what finally becomes clear for Herbert and Leonard. And so it's just wonderful. Some of the things that I say as Leonard they were interesting comments, and now they are, oh man, they're so acutely painful. One of the sentences I say is, Herbert, if you and I can't move on, how can anyone else? It's 1988. The world is changing rapidly. People are changing rapidly. Let's face it, 20 years from now, society will no longer tolerate racism, sexism, homophobia. It will all be a footnote of the past. And here we are. And interestingly enough, 20 years from 1988 was Obama. And so it was prescient, kind of, and now it's kind of sad. But like I said, I think they're very poignant and very moving moments in this piece. And I think there's a whole lot of humor. There were chuckles and there were out laughs. I think it's a courageous piece from Peter. And I think it's very accessible, which is also kind of nice because we get to say a lot of, for me as an artist, important things without being too intellectual about it.
Right. It's for everybody. It sounds very sophisticated and very, very, and it is, I'm sure, but it is also, regardless of what they do or who they are in history, they're two people having a conversation you're gonna take something from. Everybody's gonna take something.
It's also full of music. I don't sing, Luca doesn't sing. A very gifted young man is with us who plays the third role. He plays the waiter. This thing takes place after hours in the Blue Bar in the Saga Hotel in Vienna, which based on a true encounter between these two men. And Peter decided to fantasize what would happen if they spent more time together in the hotel. So, and his name is Victor Peterson, and Victor does sing. And Victor is a countertenor. And I will not say more than that, but there are a few marvelous surprises from Victor in this piece. So it is also underscored throughout our conversations, very, very often, is underscoring from the recordings the two of them made of the great classics. So Brahms, Beethoven, Mahler, Bruckner, Mozart. So there is this swell of music through the whole piece, which I think also elevates it. And Gil is brilliant with this combination of the different muses. And I think he did a fantastic job with us melding the different disciplines. I think it's going to be great fun.
It's going to be great fun. Everybody needs to run and get their tickets and get your tickets and support the show. Last Call, a new play, comes to New World Stages, Stage 5. Previews begin March 12th. Opening night is March 16th. So we're almost there. And we're going to get our tickets. Everybody can go to lastcalltheplay.com. When do you come into New York? When are you here?
I have a crazy schedule. Just before, we are still rehearsing a bit. So we're ready. And then I need to film. I am the pathologist in the German version of CSI here in Germany. So for one of the cities, for Bremen. So I have to shoot that before I come into New York. So I'm coming a little late, but I'm coming in on the 8th of March.
Perfect. Yep, we'll be ready. New York is welcoming you home. Welcome home.
Thank
Come on
you
back
very
to New
much.
York City.
You've already made me feel great about coming over. See,
I don't know what we have here that you miss in Germany. What do we have? Dirty hot dogs and French fries? What do we?
I don't know. New York is a world of its own, and I am very sure I'm going to be really happy to be there with you all. So,
well, we're very happy to have you, and we can't wait for people to check out the show. It's an honor to talk to you. Thank you for the work. Thank you for sharing your story, and we can't wait for you to light up the boards here in New York City.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.